Hello, second grade. Welcome back to your next music lesson for today. We are now going to change things up a smidge. As you can tell, the presentation here on the screen looks a little different, so we are going to switch gears. The word for the next couple of classes looks a little different than what it's pronounced, actually. It is pronounced timbre. So go ahead and say timbre, just to sort of know what it is. It's not a word we use too much. And by the way, I know it looks like timbre or whatever, or timbre if the e silent. But either way, it is timbre, and timbre essentially is it's a hard word to explain, honestly. But I would say the best way to describe timbre is to say that it's what something sounds like. So we talk about rhythm, we talk about pitch and dynamics and tempo and stuff like that. And all those things are easy to determine, like how loud or soft, how fast or slow, how high or low, how short or long, all opposites here. But timbre is a little more tricky. So basically, like, let's say, someone's playing the guitar and your eyes are closed and you have no idea what they were about to play, but you could hear that and probably guess, like, that sounds like maybe a guitar. Or you might be able to at least come up with an instrument that's kind of close to it. Or even better yet, let's say you close your eyes and you hear me talking. And even if you had no idea who you were listening to at first, you might have thought after a couple of words, hey, you know what, that sounds like maybe Mr. Roberts. Or if you didn't hear, or if you didn't guess my name, you might have thought, well, that sounds like a man. That sounds like an adult man that I'm listening to. And that's all because of, all those examples are because of the timbre of these things that, we have. Everybody's voice has a different kind of timbre. If I were to close my eyes and someone in the classroom were to talk, I could probably pick out who it might have been, especially if I've had that class for a couple of times. So we'll get into what I'm going to do with timbre for these next couple classes. But for the time being, it's been a while. I feel like it's not only good for your voices to warm up, but also for your brain to kind of warm up just a little bit. Hopefully you could have told me these rules without the words in front of you, but they are there just in case you need them. Let's go ahead and sing our song. 1, 2, ready, here we sing. Listen and follow directions. Raise your hand before speaking or leaving your seat. Respect your classmates and your teacher. Keep your hands, feet, and objects to yourself. So again, try and remember those rules next time we see each other in person, which might be, soon, or not, who knows. Either way, I can't predict the future, boys and girls, sorry, but I can teach you about music. So let's talk about our objective. It says we will be able to identify blow, pluck, and bow instruments by sight. So basically, like I said with timbre, everything sounds different from, even if your eyes are closed, you could probably identify it because more than likely you've heard it before in one shape or fashion or another. And if you're not familiar with, the instruments we'll talk about, that's why we're doing them now. But there are different methods or ways that you can play an instrument. Obviously, there are ones that you're going to blow into if your air produces the sound. There are some that you're going to pluck or some that you're going to bow, and there are some others as well that we'll talk about maybe in another class. But for the time being, we're going to get to those types of instruments. Now, before we do that, I wanted to maybe sort of ease into our new timbre unit here and go over a song that we should know, maybe, pretty well. If you don't, please listen. It sounds like this. Great big house in New Orleans, 40 stories high. Every room that I've been in is filled with pumpkin pie. So, this song is a song that we're going to add some instruments to in a second. But before we do that, I wouldn't mind maybe trying to at least get a sense of what the solfege is. So how about this? Can you, with a flat hand, either move your hand up as your voice gets up or lower as your voice goes lower? And we'll sort of slowly go through the song just in case, one, you need it to go that slow, or two, maybe you're still sort of learning it. And if you're still learning it, you might want to rewind and listen to it maybe 2 or 3 more times before you try this hand thing. Because the hand thing, I'm sort of assuming, is for someone who knows the song pretty well. You know what it sounds like. Now you just got to kind of put your hand and your brain together and realize, oh, that's right, it's going up or it's going down or whatever. Let's try it nice and slow. Ready, go. Great big house in New Orleans, 40 stories high. Every room that I've been in is filled with pumpkin pie. And hopefully at the end you heard pumpkin pie beats going down there. So, in case you are wondering, those are the solfege answers. Why don't you go ahead and try it on body signs for me. Remember, mi is my shoulders, sol is my head, and la goes a little higher. And the mi's on my shoulders, re is in there, our new note re, and re is on the ribs, so re is below it. So mi, re, and do is on the waist. So let's give it a try. I'll move back so you can see as best again. Let's start on my mi, right? That would make sense, Mr. Roberts. 1 and 2, solfege and body signs. Ready, go now. Mi, sol, sol, la, mi, sol, sol. Mi, sol, sol, la, mi, re. Mi, sol, sol, la, mi, sol, sol. Sol, mi, re, do. So, again, there's another, song that maybe you might want to put in your memory bank. Hey, it's got that mi, re, do, which has our 2 notes for the year, do and re, and they kind of, are easy to remember. It's right at the end of the song. So anyway, we're going to add in our little ostinato here with our rhythm that you see on the board. If you want to get out some type of instrument that can do rhythm pretty easily, I got 2 drumsticks here. You can pick something else if you'd like. That is up to you. I'm going to move myself as much out of the way as possible. But why don't we go ahead and play that rhythm. 1, 2, ready, here we go right now. Ta, ti, ta, ta, and repeat. Don't forget that sign at the end of the line is a repeat sign. Even if you didn't have that, I told you it's an ostinato, so you remember ostinatos always repeat, just like we're doing, right? Keep saying it, and ta, ti, ta, ta. So, let's try it on words, since I think that might be a little easier first, and then maybe we'll switch to solfege. But do your best to do that ostinato and sing the song. Let's see how it goes. Ready, here we go. Great big house in New Orleans, 40 stories high. Every room that I've been in is filled with pumpkin pie. Hey, that wasn't too hard, and I think maybe that wasn't too hard because a lot of the rhythms in that ostinato up top here are similar, if not almost exactly the same as some of the parts in the song. So let's try it now one more time. We're going to start the ostinato, do it once or twice, and then add in the song, but we're going to add the song in on solfege. So try your best to do all that at the same time. 1 and 2, ostinato first by itself. Ready, go. Ta, ti, ta, ti, ta. You ready to sing solfege? And then here we go. Mi, sol, sol, la, mi, sol, sol. Mi, sol, sol, la, mi, re. Mi, sol, sol, la, mi, sol, sol. Sol, mi, re, do. How'd you do? If you did perfect, great. If you want to practice a little more, whether you did perfect or not, you can rewind and try that one more time. But I am going to go on and ask the question. Well, first off, timbre, what is it? I guess we already sort of talked about that, didn't we? Right? It's the character or quality of a sound or voice that has nothing to do with its pitch, how high or low, or intensity. And it's usually when people talk about intensity, they're talking about dynamics, like how loud or soft. So that's just a fancy word to make people sound smart. Anyway, that's timbre. The objective talked about instruments we can blow, pluck, or bow. So I don't know what instrument you just used, but I use this one. Am I blowing? I am not. Am I plucking? I am not. Am I bowing? I am not. So this is an instrument that we probably won't talk about today too much, but it is an instrument that obviously has a certain way in which we play it. And we're going to talk about it, probably next class, or at least something similar to it. So let's go ahead and get into our timbre. Now that we've experienced one type of instrument, let's see what we're going to talk about today specifically. So these are all instruments that you blow, as you can see by the words up top there. And I have 6 different pictures. Now, I've blocked out their names only for the fact that I'm guessing there's at least some instruments up there that maybe at least some of you would know the names to. Maybe you have an older brother or sister who plays them, or maybe your parents do, or maybe you do, or maybe you've just been around these instruments and you know about them already. So maybe not, if you want to kind of give yourself a little self-test here, maybe you can pause the video and see if you can name some or even all of the instruments. But I'm about to go ahead and show you what the names are just in case you're not sure of some of them. So they are, this one's called the trumpet, this one's called the trombone, this one's called the tuba, which looks a whole lot like a baritone, by the way, in case anybody said baritone. But I'm going to guess some of you said tuba. This is called the clarinet. A lot of you know that from Mr. Squidward. This is our saxophone, and this is the flute. So, 6 instruments that are fairly common that you're going to see probably in, say, the band in your maybe 4th and 5th grade band at school, or definitely in middle school, high school, college, or professional concert bands or orchestras. You're going to see at least most of these from time to time. So, let's take a listen to some of them and sort of hear how it sort of sounds like, hey, that sounds like something you would probably have to blow to make that sound. Here's a trumpet. All right, so that's what a trumpet sounds like. How about a trombone? Take a listen. You might have even in the middle there heard the trombone player, I think it was he, breathed in the middle there. Did one of those because it's a bigger instrument than a trumpet. You need kind of a lot of air to make the sound happen, to fill up the instrument with your air. So there's another example of blowing. Here's your tuba, which is even bigger still. Now, that was a little softer. I don't know if I would say that that person's probably the best tuba player in the entire world, but either way, it is a bigger instrument. So let's say you have, your lungs, they're only so big. You need to put in, a lot more air in a tuba to make it as loud as, say, you would for a trumpet or a trombone because they are smaller. You don't need as much air. So kind of makes sense. Let's keep listening. Here's your clarinet, which you might be familiar with. Take a listen. Right? And saxophone, which, by the way, clarinet and saxophone, even though they look different, they work very similarly. And by the way, just in case you were wondering, the saxophone and the clarinet recording, they did, both of them had some sort of other instruments in there, but the main one you're hearing is either the clarinet or the saxophone. Saxophone can be looked at or seen as sort of more jazzy kind of instrument. You're going to hear it a lot in jazz songs. So that's why that sort of style of music for that instrument sounded a lot different than the others. But saxophones can still play any kind of music, just like any instrument can play any type of music. So I'm just saying, maybe normally a saxophone is found in a jazz band or something like that. Okay, so again, all six of these instruments, and there are more than just these six, but these six instruments are types of instruments that you would blow into to make sound. And I feel like just saying that, in case you don't know, you guys right now are in second grade, right? Sorry. In third grade, we do get a little taste of what it's like to play certain instruments, maybe more so than right now in second grade. In third grade, you get the chance to play recorder. And in fourth grade and fifth grade, you get the chance to join the either concert band or the orchestra or the string ensemble, depending on whatever your school calls it. And that's an opportunity to play some of these types of instruments. Now, third grade, you just get recorder, but recorder is still fun, and recorder is, by the way, another instrument that you would need to blow into. So, anyway, I got, I think, one or two videos of just so you not only know what it sounds like, but also can see what it looks like when someone is playing some of these instruments. This is a trumpet player. Take a listen. Okay, so you might have noticed that her fingers, her three fingers, were kind of moving pretty fast sometimes. Not the whole time. If she's holding a long note, then she doesn't got to do anything. But if she's going da-da-da-da-da, she's got to move her fingers pretty fast, which is the case for just about any instrument that's moving fast. More than likely, you're controlling it somehow, and a lot of times it's through the fingers. So here's a saxophone. Again, maybe not jazzy, but not totally classical either. This is a song called Tears in Heaven by Eric Clapton, played on the saxophone. Okay, you get the idea. So again, got his fingers moving. Saxophones and other instruments like that, they're called woodwinds, have a lot of keys or buttons, more so than a trumpet, which only has your three. But again, both are using your air in some form, some fashion to make the sound happen. So now let's move on to our pluck or bow instruments. And I should say, I'll explain that in a second, but here are your four that we're going to talk about. And when I talk about plucking something, I'm talking about like, here's my finger and I'm plucking the string to make the sound happen. And when that happens, the string will vibrate and sound will appear. If I'm bowing something, you look at either this instrument here or this instrument, you see the large part of the instrument, but you also have this thing that kind of looks like a stick almost. That's called a bow. And you would sort of slide that across the string the correct way. And that would, again, make the string vibrate. And it would sort of sound a little different than if you plucked it. So, excuse me. So these instruments that you do have bows for, which I'll tell you what the names are in a second. But you can pluck those strings. You're not like it's not illegal to do that. But you can also bow them. However, some of the other instruments, like this one or this one, do not have a bow. So there are some of these instruments. They're all string instruments, by the way. You're not going to pluck or bow something that isn't a string, as far as I know. But that's my little blurb about that. So again, if you want to kind of maybe test your knowledge and see if you can name these four instruments, or at least some of them, now might be a good time to pause, because I am going to go ahead and tell you the names. And this is our violin. This is our guitar, which I would guess most of you are at least a little familiar with. This is what's called a harp. And this is our double bass, or sometimes just called the bass. And that's the biggest string instrument, or at least string instrument in like the violin family. So let's take a listen to some of them. Here's your violin, and maybe you can tell me, even just from describing it, does it sound like it's being plucked, like it's going to be short, sort of boom, 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 boom kind of sounds, or does it sound like it's going to be bowed, which is like longer sounds that are, a little more flowy legato to throw a music word out there at you. So take a listen. Okay. Plucked or bowed is the question. Hopefully you can tell me, or maybe you could tell me that was in fact bowed. Those were very smooth legato notes, very connected, not dun 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 dun. We'll talk about. I'll definitely at least give you one example of a plucked instrument so you can tell. Take a listen to your double bass, which is obviously a lot bigger, and it's going to sound a lot lower. Okay, so and then you might have thought, hey, that didn't sound that low. But since it was played as sort of like a solo instrument, you heard the piano in the background maybe. But since it was played as a solo instrument, usually instruments tend to, especially low ones, tend to play a little higher in their register. So this bass player, or the bassist, was probably playing like way high on the neck for some of those notes. Versus if they were playing way down low, like all the way up, where the notes are the lowest, you would hear a definite difference. Now again, plucked or bowed, that was actually also bowed. The notes moved kind of fast, but they were still, very connected for the most part. And I didn't really put a recording for guitar because I am kind of assuming that, again, you've heard it before. If you haven't and I'm mistaken, you can definitely, look up something if you want. But again, you probably heard guitars of all kinds on the radio with pop music or things like that. Anyway, I do have a video though for the harp, so take a listen. And this is, by the way, an instrument that is plucked, and you're not only going to hear it, but you're going to see it. And they're playing the song Beauty and the Beast from the Disney movie. Notice every note is plucked by your finger. So, you might have also noticed that some of those strings are different colors. There's a lot of white strings, but there's some red ones, some blue ones. And the reasoning for that is kind of like how pianos have not only white keys, but also black keys. If they were all the same color and they all looked exactly the same, it'd be really hard for somebody to kind of know where they are. But since you have this pattern, like on a piano or on a harp, it's a little easier to sort of visually see, oh, okay, there's the blue string, so I need to be, 2 strings above or whatever. So you can visually see the difference. Anyway, hopefully, more importantly, you could see that every note she was plucking with this instrument. That's how you play a harp. You don't use a bow for this one. So again, harp, you're going to pluck it. Guitar, you're going to pluck it. But a violin and a double bass, you could pluck it or you could bow it. You could do either one because it comes with a bow. Okay? So I think that is all that I want to talk about today, second grade. I hope that you have a lovely rest of your week, and I will see you guys next time. Bye-bye.